I will introduce our next speaker, Dr. Chang-mo, Director of Fisheries Policy Research Development at KMI. He studied agricultural economics at Seoul University for his doctoral degrees and worked for 17 years at KMI, and he has researched on the fisheries policies. And his presentation will be on growth prospects and issues of eco-friendly aquaculture based on smart technology. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Chang-mo from KMI. And we will talk about environmentally friendly issues today, but I will talk something else. And recently, there was a TV series called Social Dilemma, and YouTube developers were featured in this documentary, and they were talking about how YouTube becomes a platform for generating fake news. And consumers are really interested in these fake news and spend a lot of time watching this news. That is why this news spreads so fast. And only 5% of the developers understand this algorithm. And when we talk about smart aquaculture, let's think about the 10 years later or 20 years later, what do we need to think about aquaculture? So we worked so hard to decrease the feed, to make it environmentally friendly, and etc. And the issues that we are faced with now is highly relevant with the sustainability and environmental issues. And we would have to think about for the last 7 years, I was thinking of how to implement this algorithm. Whenever we think about environmentally friendly products, they think these products are just organics. But if you look at the FAO guideline, they mainly focus on sustainability. It should be relevant in terms of ethical issues and sustainability. So that is the main point of environmentally friendly. So the concept of this is actually broader than what we normally think. And we need to address these issues, and it costs a lot of money to go green. So it is important it is important that we pay right price for this kind of products, and many people are working to achieve that goal. The aquaculture is growing really fast, as you can see here, and many people say that if the aquaculture grows, we are providing a lot of quality protein to people. So I was introduced that I worked for KMI for 17 years, and for 10 years I traveled across the world to look at the aquaculture farms, and I could witness that how the aquaculture is causing pollutions, and fish escape was also one of the problems. And we need to address this issue. And by moving forward environmentally friendly aquaculture, we are trying to address the issues that I just mentioned. It is still finite. For example, anchovies and catching small fish like anchovies. It is actually closely related to the food security. Think about it. Just catching the fish and eating, but versus catching the fish to feed another fish. So we will have to think about how we can develop the aquaculture for the future. So to make a better future in 20 years, what kind of education do we need to provide, and what kind of variables do we need to think about? And these are really important issues for us right now. And if you look at the graph here, many people might be confused because until last year I was director for the aquaculture department, but now we need to think about the pollution. You all know the SDG 14, which is a life underwater, and developing countries. We need to help them so that they can be provided with the protein from ocean, and they can protect their environment while also developing their aquaculture industry. And many people say that we still have a long way to go in terms of this goal. So we really need to think about how we can do better in this sector. So these pictures indicate a lot of issues. You can see the fish escape here. So we normally talk about red tide and storms. But the biggest challenge is actually fish escape. So when we have fish escape incidents, few times they will get warning and they will be shut down if it is repeated. And this can lead to the contamination, and there's also the antibiotic issue, and it can cause health issues, and consumers may not really like it. And even without the efforts of ASC, many influencers on the SNS and even the millennial generations are really focused on this issue. For example, McDonald's had an issue because of the antibiotics usage for their beef. And if that happens, the stock may plunge. Stock value can plunge, and younger generations are more sensitive to these issues. So it is really about the consumer selection, and the distributor in the middle will serve as a middleman. So the environmental issue is closely related to the market, and we need to provide an education program for aquaculture farms. And this is a table made based on the FAO guideline. And if things are all covered, you will see the green color on the table, and the yellow is partially applied, and red not applied at all. So if you consider now, we are still in an initial stage, but in 10 to 20 years, our goal is to get to make the table filled with green color. So we will also have to talk about the labor issues, for example, child labor and the ethical consumption. So when we talk about eco-friendly, it is not limited to what we normally think. In order to effectively address this issue, we will have to think about a broader definition. So let's look into GSSI, and that's redundant certification. And most of the certifications, including ASC, there are some cost issues, and this GSSI is trying to address these redundancy issues. So the important thing is not really about how many farms got this certification, how many countries got it. It's not important. The important is the trend that's going upward. It is dramatically increasing, and as you can see the number here, that you can see the countries and farm sites and productions, they are increasing really fast, and it will settle really fast as well. And what we can think about based on the numbers here is the guidelines and recommendations. These are not mandatory actually, but you can see the illegal fishing and IUU fishing. These were discussed more than 20 years. And the market action kind of motivates this kind of fishing. So it's important that we approach the market to address this issue. This market approach, as mentioned by Professor Kim Do-hoon, think about Costco, Walmart, these big retailers. If they have some mandatory requirement, and if they say that they will use 15% of the environmentally friendly products, they will keep, if they say that they will keep these requirements, and if they say something like they will not use unethical products, if we have this kind of response from the market, it will be very effective. So the biggest changes that we had, the things that were discussed 10 to 20 years in the international organization, sometimes it didn't work out and wasn't implemented. But the market movement can actually have a huge impact on this kind of guidelines. So major distributors and major retailers are participating in this movement. So for such effort, we can encourage industries to do so, and it would be the role of the government to encourage the market to do so. Let's talk about Korea. We are moving towards eco-friendly aquaculture, and we normally talk about organic products. So it is very limited definition when we compare it to the FAO guideline. So the farm sites say that they put so much effort to produce this eco-friendly aquaculture, but they say that the price is not good enough for them. So whenever we have a consumer survey, it seems like that there's a difference. However, if you look into the reality, it's not so much different between the eco-friendly and non-eco-friendly products. So it is also important that we encourage consumer movement. And I have been researching on smart technology as well. Why smart technology is closely related to environmentally friendly products. We are working hard to go towards smart technology is because it effectively manages one cage by cage, and it can manage more in a more detailed way and more specific way, and it uses less water and energy, and it can be really helpful for eco-friendly products. So today we will hear about biofloc, and there's also aquaponics and RAS. And this movement towards RAS is increasing dramatically. And if you look at Norway, there's ocean farm, and this large-scale aquaculture is being implemented in Norway. So there's also a land aquaculture which can be very safe and stable. And in case of Norway, they go to the offshore. They go for offshore, and the net is 11 layered, meaning that they are very sensitive about fish escape, and they have about 10,000 sensors. It means that they put feed for fish in a very effective way. So if you look at from the economics perspective, this is really important for the success of the business. So specifically selecting an area for the specific species, and that would be important for the economics of the business, and also protecting so that fish cannot escape the net. So there's the environmental aspect as well as the economics aspect. So the economics is not the only factor that encourages the technological development. If you look at Ross, this is the US, and this is in Europe. You can see the facility concentration. It seems very concentrated, and you can see the rust is being spread across the world. So basically, they recirculate the water for the large-scale aquaculture farming. There are many researchers going on across the world, and for each cage, how many fish can we have? So from the perspective of well-being of water, we will have to think about that. For example, tilapia farm, they will have to think about the animal welfare. So they have the optimal number for the effectiveness, but if we focus more on environment and animal well-being, then the structure of aquaculture farm will change. So what kind of mindset do we need to have for aquaculture industry? Do we need to only think about the economics? We actually have to think about two factors, economics and environment. So the challenges that we are faced with, we use a lot of raw fish feed, but if we move to the extruded pellets, it would be better for the environment. So we will have to move towards that trend. And also the antibiotics. For biofloc and the aquaponics, we do not use antibiotics. So this kind of technologies will be welcomed by the market. So also, I mentioned about fish escapes and ethical concerns. Even if it costs money, it's something that we must do. So currently we talk about aquaculture run by people, but the fourth industrialization and AI technologies are advancing really fast. So we don't know how fast the smart aquaculture or AI-based aquaculture will come. I don't know about that. However, what's important in the aquaculture is to define the eco-friendly product properly, and based on that definition, we will be able to advance our technologies and adopt it, and we will have to think about all the factors, environmental factors as well as the economics factors. Thank you very much.